The next passage that I want to talk about is this famous story of the Good Samaritan. It is found in Luke 10:25 to 29, and I'm just going to read it real quick. One day, an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question: "Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus replied, "What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it?" The man answered, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "Right," Jesus told him, "do this and you will live." The man wanted to justify his actions, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed over to the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If his bills run higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." Now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by the bandits? Jesus asked. The man replied, "The one who showed him mercy." Then Jesus said, "Yes, now go and do the same." It's interesting, a lot can be gained about issues related to people with disabilities and ministry from this passage. It's interesting that the very first thing is this question of who is my neighbor. In verse 29 it says the man wanted to justify his actions, and I never really understood justify his actions till I talked to a colleague of mine at the university, and he said the man was not asking who is my neighbor, the man was asking who's not my neighbor. Just want to get it right, Jesus. Make sure I have it the same as you. These people are my neighbors and these people are not my neighbors. Did I get it right? Just want to justify myself, make sure I have it right. So he wasn't asking who is, he's asking who's not. And it's interesting, Jesus responds with this story. And the thing that's striking to me is when he talks about who your neighbor is, he talks about this man who is beaten and left for dead. And so his immediate go-to is a person with severe physical disabilities who can do nothing for himself. All he's doing is lying there dying. He's not doing anything. The initial go-to that Jesus describes is a man with severe disabilities who can do nothing for himself. It's interesting. Then there are 3 people who pass by. One is a priest, one is a temple assistant. Now the thing that's interesting is those 2 guys they're the religious leaders. They look at this guy, they're Jewish, he's Jewish, they look at this guy, and then they pass by. But then the 3rd guy who comes along, listen to the word he used, a despised Samaritan, right? Samaritans and Jews didn't get along, baby. They did not get along. And so when you're talking about Samaritans to Jews, the term despised made sense back then. So here's this guy who was of a different ethnic group, did not agree, despised Samaritan, and yet he's the one who comes and help him. The second thing we learn from this passage is that the mere presence of people with disabilities will reveal the character of those around them. We find from this passage that the religious leaders, their character was kind of weak when it comes to loving their neighbor. Whereas this Samaritan, this despised Samaritan, understood that his neighbor was someone not just exactly like him, but someone of a different ethnicity, someone who's experiencing, the effects of disability, at least at that moment. And so it's very powerful that the mere presence of a person, in this case with this disability, reveals the character of people around them. That'll happen in the church too. As individuals with disabilities more and more come to the church, we'll find out if people really love their neighbor or not on the way that they interact with the folks with disabilities. And then Jesus asks this question, it's really fascinating. Just as an aside, he says, so who helped him? Well, the answer is the Samaritan. But this guy don't even want to say the word Samaritan. He says the one who helped him. And then Jesus' response is to go and do likewise, to help your neighbor. The bottom line is everyone is our neighbor. There's basically no one who's not our neighbor. One last thing, though, on this passage that I've thought a lot about. One of the things that I have my university students do is go and interview their pastors. And they'll ask questions like, are people with disabilities a priority for ministry? What's the evidence they're a priority for ministry? If they're not a priority, why aren't they a priority? And oftentimes pastors will say, we love everyone all the same. Anyone who comes to our church, we will love them with the love of Christ. And you can think of that at first and think, oh, that sounds pretty good. But then you recognize these people don't have the ability to get there. People with physical disabilities often don't have the ability to get there. People with intellectual disabilities or autism, right? They don't get driver's licenses, so they can't get to the church. So it's very good for me to say, I love everyone who comes. But that would be like the Good Samaritan saying to the guy who's beaten and left for dead, oh man, you're in bad shape. But down the road, there is a hotel. If you get yourself down to that hotel, I'll take care of you. All right, I'll see you later. I'll see you at the hotel. He has no way to get to the hotel, right? To be cared for. So that's an aspect of it too. It's easy to say you love people when they come, when people don't have the ability to come. And one other thing too, I was blessed to know a man who had been beaten and left for dead in real life. He had been beaten in Seattle and left for dead. And he became a dear, dear friend of mine. And it's funny, the last words he said to me was, you learned a lot from me. And I was like, yeah, I did. But one thing I noticed about him was the severity of the disabilities that he had after being beaten and left for dead. And for this guy, the Samaritan, to say, here's 2 silver coins, take care of him, and I'll pay for anything else he needs, that was a huge commitment on his part. And there's an aspect of that, maybe that's what we're called to do. Maybe we're called to sacrifice a variety of different things in order to support individuals in the community who have these same types of disabilities. So it kind of is a much deeper story than we would typically hear, specifically in the areas that kind of touch on what we want to understand about disability ministry.